how she's managed all of this with necessary support and help. Meenu, it's all yours.
Thank you, Vishal. Hi, guys. Hello.
Meenu, just a quick disclaimer. Everyone else will be on mute, and if they have any comments, they'll probably mention it in chat as such.
Okay.
So you can just go ahead and, if in case any questions, we'll be mentioning them at the end.
Okay. So hi, yeah. As Vishal said, this is Meenu Singh, and right now I live in Belandur area. I am here since last 10 plus years, and before that I was in Koramangala. So I am going to talk about the whole 40 years of my life, which I thought I can categorize it majorly into 5 to 6 phases. And I'm going to go through all the phases and talk about it in detail. So, all these 40 years was not easy for me. And it's only after COVID-19, 2020, I started seeing the result of what I have done all those years. Deepa, can I have the presentation, please? Um, this is my daughter. She's right now 6 years old. And yeah, these are my pets in my balcony. Right now, I have around five rescued dogs at home. They're all having their own stories. They are rescued from the street from different situations and different locations. And I couldn't leave them back even after the recovery because they were not in a situation to go back. So, one by one, in different phases of life, they kept becoming my part of my family. Next. Can I have the next slide, please?
One minute. Huh?
So these are the major agendas. I'll just read through it, and then I'm going to divide all these things into five major category, which I felt was the major switch in my life. So this is the early life and introduction to animals, me as a child, how it all started with me and what kept me going till today, how being an activist affected my life, then my college, my studies, how it helped, where it exactly started helping me train my life passion, and then the stage where I moved to Bangalore from Pune and working for 3 to 4 years in Samriddhi Trust as a teacher and then getting promoted to the project manager. Samriddhi Trust is a uh, organization who caters to migrant laborers' kids. And next is transitioning exclusively to animal welfare. I was doing other things as well parallelly for living and as a part of my education and career. But there was a transition when I totally shifted to animal welfare and how I started feeding 100, then 200, 500, and now close to 1,000 animals. Rescues, animal birth control, anti-rabies drives. Uh, I have rented out sheds, made it a rescue shed. Animal cruelty cases, which was attended by me. Some wild animals also. On-spot treatment workshops and trainings, which I started after COVID lockdown. Scaling up to the next step, next level, challenges all through 40 years. Challenges is the common everywhere, and what I'm looking for future. Next, please. So I don't have the pictures and videos of me as a child, so that's why I've used my daughter's picture. Like every child, I was also a curious baby who always got attracted towards nature, animals, birds around me, and I think every child is born curious and every child is born biophilic, where they love nature, they love animals, they love every living being, and they do understand pain and suffering. It's just that the way we grow up and the societal pressure and the things which happens around us makes us a different person altogether, and then we have a disconnect somewhere. So I would say I was also a normal child and used to get very attracted towards animals around me. And I still remember, I think it's my mother's influence. She was not an animal activist or an animal lover, but she was definitely not a animal hater or not somebody who would get scared by animals. So I remember she used to make two extra rotis for me. I was from a small town, uh, Jamshedpur, and it is a very cute green town. And we had stray animals, cattle, birds around us. We used to live in quarters. I was not aware of apartment culture and high rise buildings and all. And we used to go walking to the school and come back walking. So I remember my mother used to give me two extra rotis, and because I was the youngest child, I used to go and give one roti to a cow and one roti to a Moti. Moti was a black colored dog in my backside of my house, and he would come running and jump on me with his muddy paws and dirty paws, and I would. Somehow I started to feel connection that, oh, just a roti can chapati can make a dog so happy. And I was always curious. Yeah, even with the cow, I remember one day I wanted to give that roti to cow, and I was just stepping back, and by mistake I fell down in a manhole, without realizing that there is a hole behind. So I vaguely remember these things, and I remember once it was raining very heavily, and I could hear a kitten cry continuously, and it was my mom who accompanied me to get the kitten down from the roof, and I remember we gave her milk. So maybe that was the connection. But there was a lot of other problems while growing up which started happening. Was I started seeing meat, I mean, people eating chicken, fish, and egg, and there was no connection. I didn't understand what it is, and it was just considered as a food. But slowly, while growing up, I could understand what it is and from where it comes from. So that was the question, that why nobody feels anything about it and why it is so normal. And I also ate. I am a non-vegetarian. My family was a non-vegetarian. Now they have converted vegetarian. So I also ate, and I also liked the taste of it. I was not aware earlier as a child what it is. My daughter is very, very much aware. Nobody was there with me to answer my questions, whereas I made sure my daughter, when she asked anything, I mean, she gets very amazed when she hears things like, I like chicken or I like fish. Even in cartoons, when she hears it, and she comes back to me saying, fish is not meant to eat. I mean, how can someone eat fish, or how can someone eat chicken? So we play with hens in our apartment complex. We had one or two hens behind near sewage treatment plant. So yeah, so this is my daughter, and I started introducing her, started telling her what is right and what is wrong. And there are videos which you will see at the end of this presentation, that animals around her are very comfortable, and she, as a child, was very open. Every child is like that. And after seeing my daughter being so fearless among the dogs, many people started changing in my own apartment complex. So I think this is what happened with me. And my early life and introduction to animals started with my parents somewhere. And but yeah, later it became, I became too into it, and that started affecting the other things, which I'm going to talk about next. Next slide, please. So this is the phase two, I would see, which continued till, I would say, last year. even now it continues. It's the cost of being different. It was very difficult to be little different than the crowd and able to, I mean, try to mix up with them where your things doesn't match with the other people, and you're not able to explain why it is happening and why am I. So there are I had to pay the cost of being different, and these are the phases where I kept paying the cost of being different. So during my childhood, after I grew up a little bit, started going to schools and all, I would start seeing some puppy on the road, start seeing some kitten which is not well, and I would share my lunchbox with them. I would not eat myself. So those things were a trouble for my parents, that why are you doing all these things, and we never meant this for you. I mean, that is very common. You go out and you see things happening. You have to concentrate in your education. You're going to school, go to school, and this lunch is for you and not for anybody else. Please have your lunch and come back. But I wouldn't understand that. I would pick up some puppy, get them home, and my parents would become very upset about it. It was not only parents, then relatives who started seeing me doing all that, uh, which was not very normal. Like everybody doesn't do that, and they would come and complain, ki, what is she doing, and this is not right. Friends, my classmates, friends, teacher, I remember if a dog follows me to the school and to till the classroom, I would be like punished, ki, you have to take the dog, keep the dog out of the school, why the dog is following you. And I would feel very bad, looking at the dog's face, that he just want to be with me. And I don't even know which dog is that. It's just simply some dog walking behind me when I just tried to touch the dog on the way. So the connection was there, but I kept feeling that nobody understands me. That was my childhood. And later, I grew up to go to school, high school, college, everywhere is the same problem. So I shifted from Jamshedpur to Vishakhapatnam for my bachelor's. And I remember in ladies' hostel where I used to stay, there was a cat which I started feeding. So I would steal a little food from the mess, and I would go and feed the cat, and I would take some food out when I'm going out to college, and I would feed some dogs on the way. So my friends would complain it to the warden, hostel warden, and say that she's wasting food. Actually, she's taking food and feeding the animals outside. It went on to my personal life, like even marriage. I remember after Vishakhapatnam, I got shifted to Pune. I was working as a research assistant with my director of my institute. I have done my master's in environmental science, and after coming back from there, I had to get one dog back for me. Because I couldn't leave the dog back. It was again a rescue. While I was doing the job, I was working as a research assistant. I had a dog which was near my ladies' hostel, and she littered puppies, and I made sure that she gets sterilized. And 6 puppies were there. All 5 puppies got adopted. Last one was not, because he was very ugly and very malnourished and very weak, and that's why he landed up with me, and I took care of him for 3 to 4 months in my hostel room, with a lot of resistance from my other hostel mates. But I had to pay the cost. I would get up early, I would sleep late, I would make sure the dogs are getting food, the mother is getting food. I had to listen to all the complaints which the puppy has done. If the puppy gone out and did something, picked up somebody's chappal or shoes, they would come fight with me. So all those things I had to tolerate, all my life. And I didn't complain. I'm like, okay, this is how life is. And because I have love on them and I cannot ignore it, I have to bear this. It has gone to the level of having problems in marriage life as well. I mean, the moment I got the first dog, my husband was like, what is this now? And I tried to explain him that I cannot leave him back, because it was a puppy and it grew up with me, and nobody wants to take him. And now I am shifting from Pune to Bangalore after marriage. So where would I leave the puppy? So that was a problem. We kept fighting about that one puppy, rescued one, and it went on and on and on. I kept taking all the problems. My family, my parents would call and say, are you still doing that dog and cat, and or are you doing something worth? So everybody made me realize that it's not worth, whatever you're doing is not worth. I had to even sacrifice on vacations, holidays, get-togethers, social parties, friends, because nobody was like me. So I would get connected to very few people who actually understand, who I am and why I do this. So very limited social life, very limited um, personal life, and yeah, and long hours of feeding. I'm right now feeding 900 dogs. I did everything all alone, starting from last 11 years till today. It At one point it became like too much, where I couldn't do it myself. So I had to hire somebody to, help me out. But it was already always one man army. I always did it alone. So I would not sleep on time. And because of that, my health issues, I started having a lot of stomach pain because of acidity, and stomach ulcers because I would not get time to eat. And that's the reason why I don't even have a proper presentation for today, because there is just no time. I just had to ask somebody to make a presentation for me, and I had millions of videos, but I don't know how many of them, those videos you'll be able to see today, because we couldn't compile it. I really have no time. Sorry for that. Yeah, so long hours of feeding, sleeping late at night, getting up early. Sometimes the feeding goes till early morning, and fighting a lonely battle. Yeah, a lot of people around which who don't understand me. I mean, a lot of people. I'm villagers around this area, landlords, builders, IT companies, whatnot. Everybody. Next is the societal pressure. I was after coming back to Bangalore, as a family. I started living with my husband in this particular apartment over here. Um, I would say at one point of time, I was socially boycotted. Nobody would speak to us. Nobody would come to our house. I would never go to celebrate Holi, Diwali, or any kind of festival, Ganesha, Dashera, nothing. I always lived in fear that, oh my God, I mean, these people will look at me and say, oh, this is the one, she's the one, as if it's a criminal offense or something which I am committing. It's a sin to get along with animals and feed them and treat them. So that was a pressure. If the dogs barks at night, I would get up immediately and go down and try to shush them, because I'm scared that people would get up and start complaining ki, because of her the dogs are barking and we are not able to sleep. So all that pressure, it became a part of my life, that and maybe that is the reason why I'm so stubborn and why I'm so fit. I'm really physically fit. I am not obese, or I'm not having much of a trouble. It's just that I have some acidity problem. It's because I don't eat on time. I keep myself busy in rescues and feeding and taking care of the whole world, and I don't get time for myself. But credit goes to the animals and the connection. I never took all these things very, very seriously. I never got into depression thinking that, oh, I don't have a life. I don't have a personal life. I don't have a family life. I don't have friends. I never complained about that, because at the end of the day, when I go and meet these animals, all those complaints were gone. I mean, the moment you see the happiness which they give you, they make you feel really, really special. For them, it's only me. And about professional life, I had to sacrifice my career. I came to Bangalore. I got into this feeding thing. I still remember 2007, there was an incident in Bangalore where mass culling of stray animals were going on for some reason. And that shook me from within. And, I would just sit and cry. I didn't know what to do. Then I started knowing about a lot of NGOs who are working for animal rights. I would go and volunteer with them. So I never got time to actually pursue my own career. I have done my master's in environmental science. I'm very much connected to nature, forest, lake, but I had my resume, I had my biodata ready. I went to few of the companies, tried to give interview. Um, Nothing worked out because I just don't have time to actually go and do a 10 hours job. I always thought I would go and then I would be away from this, but I would just go 1 or 2 days, and then, I would get some news, something happened near your house, one dog met with an accident, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to rush back. So it was very difficult to balance my professional life with my passion. So touch wood, because I was not pressurized to earn, because my husband was there to take care of the family and earn. So I was having that freedom to pursue my passion, whatever I wanted to do. And till the very end, I was lost. Is it my life? This is what I am looking for. Is it something which can be a career, or something which can be considered good by people around, considered good by the society, or is it just my passion, which I have to put it aside and do a formal job? Because I have studied, I have done my bachelor's in life sciences, I have done my master's in environmental sciences. So I got a job. I got a job right after my master's. In Lucknow. I have done my master's from Pune, and because I was a favorite student, immediately I got a job as a um, project coordinator. It was related to some zoo, some kind of a awareness program in Lucknow. But again, I went there, I started my job, and I got too much into injured cows and injured buffaloes around. And whenever I tried to do something good, people got into fight with me, and then I messed up my professional life, so I had to come back from there. And then, yeah, I was in Bangalore. I was a fitness instructor. I'm a certified fitness instructor also, because all my school life and college life I was into athletics, and it was very easy for me to pick up, fitness. So because I was free, I started going to fitness centers and learned it, because that was not a full time thing. It was a few hours in a day where I can actually do my rescues as well and feeding as well. But I cannot pursue as a career. I couldn't pursue it as a career as well. I did it. I worked as a fitness instructor for a few years, but it was always that I'm going on the way, and how can I avoid an accident or a misery or sick animal? So every time I would reach to my class late, and then the complaints. So same thing continued. And yeah, I am not a bad dancer, I'm not a good bad singer. So I wanted to go join some art classes, I wanted to go sing or dance, but nothing. I joined everything. I was a good sports woman. I have done very good when I was in college. So I joined badminton class, but I couldn't do it. I went for a few days and I have paid the whole fee. But then suddenly, because people started knowing me around this area, so suddenly somebody would call and say, oh, there is an accident. And then one accident means one full day gone. You have to go rush, take the animal to hospital, and then find out who did it, and then take care of that as well, that it doesn't happen again. So the whole day goes. So these are the costs I kept paying for my life. Even at home, when I had one dog, I had to be very, very careful that before my husband enters the house, the whole house should be clean. The dog should not be barking, and because of the dog, he should not complain for anything. The puppy should not damage anything. He should not chew off anything, which is very common. And so all those things always pressurized. Even at home, I had a pet in back in Jamshedpur. As a young uh, teenager also, I started taking care of the pet as a mother. I would clean the house because the dog is there, so the fur will fall, and my dad will come and he will say, why this dog is here, so why the house is so dirty. So I would, that fear was always there, that I have to work extra hard to keep everybody happy, otherwise I won't be allowed to pursue or have the pet or pursue whatever I'm doing. So that fear was always there. So that is the cost of being different. I have paid till, I would say, lockdown 2020. I'm going to tell you what happened after lockdown. Next slide, please. So there was a first switch in my life. I would say a ray of hope when I joined masters, and I shifted from Vishakhapatnam to Pune. I met my director, who is Dr. Iraj Barucha. You can Google about this man. He's 75 years old now, and he's a renowned environmentalist and also a surgeon by profession. He's a doctor by profession, human surgeon. He is the first person who heard me, who understood what I want to do. and actually was very amazed by knowing how much in detail I know about these dogs and cats and birds around that area. And he was very amazed. He said, why don't you pursue it as your MSc thesis? And I'm like, really? I mean, can I just uh, take this topic as a master's thesis on um stray dogs? He said, why not? I mean, just find out, why do we have stray dogs in the first place in India, and why are the problems persisting, and where are our indigenous breed, Indian breed, where are they, and what are these who are around our area, and why are they there? So why don't you do it as a just get deeper into it and start writing. And I was very scared, because people, my classmates, are taking uh, mm, selecting topics as leopards, and somebody is working on hyenas, and somebody is working on Indian sanctuaries and national parks, and somebody is working on composting, air pollution, water pollution, which sounded like nice topic. But when I say I'm working, my thesis, my master's thesis is on management of stray animals in Pune, that too stray dogs, because the dogs are misunderstood and mistaken the most, and that's why the problem is always dogs. So I wanted to work on that, and I was like, I mean, are you sure, can I take this as a master's thesis? And he said, why not? You have done this all your life, so why can't you write a paper on this? I'm like, okay. So I was not very sure. I was very scared, but I started writing about it, whatever he said. And he gave me a teacher, and he said, she will be your guide. But finally, I couldn't connect with her. And she was also like, what is this topic? And then Dr. Barucha himself guided me, to actually complete my master's thesis. I still remember I would go on two-wheeler and make map from my hand, draw the map of each gully and corner of those areas. We have taken 3 sample areas. One was a slum kind of area, one was a very posh kind of area, and one was middle class. And 1 by 1 square kilometer area I have taken as a sample area, and I studied it. What are the difference, and what is the people's perception about stray animals, and what different types of stray animals we have, and which one is the most problematic one, and why. So all those things I did. I mean, I it was very interesting, and I was amazed when I presented it. I stood second in my class. First was the leopard one, and second was me, and all those air pollution, water pollution, and whatever was below me. And I was like, okay, so this which I always thought is a weakness and is something which is wrong, because that's how people made me feel, that this is something which is not worth. You are a good dancer, go dance. You are a good fitness instructor, get a career in fitness. You are a good environmentalist, just go become an environmental consultant or something, work on lakes. What are you doing with dogs and cats and stray animals are considered pest, vermin, nuisance. So I always thought I am wrong, but thanks to Dr. Barucha, he has made me feel that it's not wrong. Whatever you're doing is a kind of a study. It is so common that we keep seeing dogs everywhere, but still nobody cares about it. And it can be a very good study. So yeah, that was my ray of hope. After joining masters in Pune, I started taking it as not very bad thing to do, and but started learning even more and more about it. And while did my masters, I spoke to n number of people to get their perception towards stray animals, and got to know a lot of things, that how and why people think that way, and how do we tackle that. So during that, I have learned a lot of other things, which was little scientific, little logical. It was not only my emotional passion, but it gave me a new path. And I joined Blue Cross Society of India in Pune. I met a veterinary doctor who was a very great expert surgeon, and we did a lot of animal birth control in that area. I was always a field person, so I would love to do it myself. And I would go roam with him and catch dogs, get it neutered and sterilized, vaccination, started learning how to give injections by him. So that was Pune. my journey in Pune. And yeah, after my thesis, even my friends stopped making fun of me and making fun of my thesis, that, oh, this is something, what is this? I mean, earlier they were like, are you serious? This is what you're going to present? So yeah, this is my thesis. You can play the video. Is it a video or just a photo? So it says study of stray animals with special reference to stray dogs in Pune city. It is Bharati Vidyapeeth Environmental Institute. Yeah, let's move on. Okay, next ray of hope was Samriddhi Trust. You see, all these kids are from nearby village, which we call it as a slum, because these are the actual villages of Bangalore. After IT, they became slum, and we are apartments and they are slums, and we are IT and they are slums. So most of the kids are from this so-called slum, which was Bengaluru Uru, Iblur, Belandur, Yamlur, Marathali. These are the Uru name. So after started working in Samriddhi Trust, I earlier had a problem whenever I went to slums to deal with some cruelty cases, and whenever I tried to tell kids, don't do this, this is wrong, you may get bitten, and this is why dogs bite, you should not tease their baby, and you should be careful, you should love them. So they would not take it very seriously. Some kids would take it seriously, but some kids would just laugh it out and they would just go away. They are not educated, and they don't have parents support or supervision. They are left alone. Parents are daily wages workers, laborers. They would go in their work, and these kids are left alone to decide what is right and what is wrong. So they are very vulnerable, and they get into the wrong activities very quickly, like trying out cigarette and bidi and leftover whiskey. It's very common. A few of them were from rat picker colony. So few people came near my house. There was a big slum in front of my apartment, and she was Mom Banerjee. She is the trustee of Samriddhi Trust. She has passion for kids, like I have passion for animals. So she got connected with me. She was looking out for one active person in the area who can actually be the in charge of the school and take care of establishing the school, training the teachers, enrolling the kids, and making the curriculum, every damn thing. And then she came to know about me, because while she was inquiring around this area, the landlord himself said there is a lady who keeps coming to the slums to feed dogs, and she keeps talking to children, and children sometimes get connected to her, so you can talk to her. Then I was called. The landlord called me and said, can you come down, and there is someone who wants to meet you. I went down and met Mom Banerjee, and we got connected instantly, because she could really understand what I do and why I do, because she was also on the same page. It was just that kids and animals, and both of them are very innocent. Animals are innocent all their life, and kids are innocent until they are left innocent without any external knowledge by society and sometimes by parents. Yeah. So this is how my journey started, and all those negativity which I faced all these years started getting converted into a little positive impact. So I was in Samriddhi Trust for 3 to 4 years, I guess, and I could change, you won't believe, I could change 500 families. All those people who used to hate animals for some religious beliefs, or for some other reason, just being raw and brutal and cruel. All those kids, I have pictures. I mean, I don't know where are those pictures. I may share it later with Saskin. I have pictures where you can see the classroom has 30 kids sitting down. We used to sit down on the floor on the mat, and even the teacher would sit down and teach them. There are pictures where the dogs are sleeping among the kids, and the kids are not ready to let them go. Even if I say dogs out of the class, no, let them be here with us. So the dogs are sleeping happily on their bags, and these kids are studying, in the classrooms. So that impact I could make. I started teaching them animal welfare. I started giving them moral lessons, along with the formal education. And I was the favorite teacher in Samriddhi Trust. All the kids got connected to me, and it was a picnic spot for them. My house was a picnic spot. So the moment they are done with the school, they would all come to my home, play with my dogs, eat here, sleep here, watch TV, or do some art and craft. Teaching is in my blood, so I always teach. So whatever I used to do, I started teaching them about animals, about art and craft, and general teaching. So they get really well connected with me. After 3 to 4 years working in Samriddhi Trust, I had to leave that job because my job was really hectic. I set my margins really high because I was always roaming around in the slums and doing the slum survey, finding out how many kids are not going to school. So I got promoted very fast. Okay, you are the manager, you are the in charge of the whole school, and you are the community coordinator. I started learning languages very fast. I could converse in Kannada, I could converse in Telugu because I was in Visakhapatnam. Because I am from Jamshedpur, I could speak very fluent Bengali, and so I just started speaking in all languages, and I could connect with the kids' parents also very well. Started showing them why education, and why you should not hurt animals, to be a good citizen, a holistic education. It's not only just go and study and have no connection with anybody else, like no nature, nothing, just pursue your career and get pressurized by your parents and write some exams and civil services and get into whatever, engineering or MBBS or IT or something. So just wanted to give them a holistic education, and that actually happened. And then slowly a BBMP animal husbandry joint director got to know about me through some animal activists and animal rescuers, that this lady is really active in this area. So they wanted to do a anti-rabies human vaccination camp for especially rag pickers. All those people who pick rags, you might have seen the dogs don't like them because both of them compete for the garbage. The dogs are sitting on the garbage for their food, then the rat pickers also comes and they have their whatever important stuff in the garbage. So they tend to usually shoot the dogs with throwing the stones and hitting them, so both of them just can't stand each other, and they sometimes get bitten also because they don't like them. The dogs also don't like them, and they are vulnerable. They sometimes get bitten, and then in that case they are not aware of getting them injected and vaccinated, and sometimes it can turn fatal and dangerous also. So it was a World Rabies Day when Indian Immunological Society of India, Hyderabad, they wanted to come and organize human vaccination camp here, pre-exposure. Even if you're not bitten, you should get a shot because you may get bitten. So joint director Dr. Piran, he is another gem of a person who actually understood me and appreciated my work. He has written about me in my homepage. I will share the link. You guys can read it later. Dr. Barucha, Dr. Piran, and another person is Dr. Ansar Kamran, who is a veterinary, who is a professor in Government Veterinary College. So all these people, they started encouraging me slowly that do it, pursue whatever you're doing is good, but it is not something which gives me salary. So that was another challenge that I have to think about, from where to get the money to support and sustain all these things. But at least these are the people who never said it's wrong and you are doing a wrong thing. They always encouraged me, they pushed me further. So yeah, that big vaccination camp was organized, and Dr. Piran came and saw me that how kids are like talking to me as mother. They don't need their mother and father while they are getting the shots, but they wanted me to be there. Ki, ma'am, please, mera haath pakad ke rakho, when I'm getting the shots done. So because I said get all of them their shots done first, they were not ready, but later they got the courage, and I could do 500 people in many different slums around this area, and it was a very successful drive. So Dr. Piran was very happy that I don't think we could do it without you. So that was a very encouraging experience. And Yeah, so this is my ray of hopes after so many years of working so hard and kept feeling myself that I'm wrong. I'm doing something wrong. Next slide, please. Um, so journey from an animal lover to an animal activist. Yeah, as I already said, the main switch happened when I shifted from Pune to Bangalore. Why? Because in Jamshedpur, I was under my parents. I was a kid who cannot decide on their own. So if the parents say no, means I cannot do it. In Vishakhapatnam, I was having very, very limited access and freedom and finances because I was a student. I was pursuing my graduation and I was given very limited pocket money. I couldn't even go to a movie with friends. It was just my parents were strict in that matter that education means education. You are not doing anything else. So again, I was under the warden, under teacher, people keeping eye on me, my dad calling and saying what time she comes back to hostel. So I couldn't do much, but I kept doing whatever I can. Few people were there who met me in different phases of my life uh, who encouraged me. Like one of my warden was there. She said, "Do it, don't worry, I'm with you." So one or two people here and there in my life, among 99% of people, would say, "Do it." It's a good thing. Yeah. So moving to Bangalore was a main switch. I was free. I was married, and after marriage, I shifted here. So no pressure from parents that don't do this and do only this, and what is your result, and what is your exams, and what is the result of your competitive exams. So nobody's there to ask me that. My husband was a friend. I know him since last 20 years. He was like a classmate, so he would not mind that much. He would be like, okay, it's your life. But yeah, once I got the dog home, then the fight started that, oh, I never expected that you're going to get the dogs home. That is another story altogether. But the freedom which I got, and only after 25 years of age, being a woman, I actually got the freedom. Okay, now it's my life. Till then, I was doing my schooling and then bachelor's and then master's, and then I was always under somebody's eye. Don't do this, don't do this. So here, after coming to Bengaluru, I was like, I started feeling free. Now at least I can decide what I want to do. And yeah, that was the switch. And then 2007 incidents where I saw a lot of YouTube videos on mass culling of stray dogs. For some reason, I don't know what was the reason. Some confusion, something was there, and it was very bad. I still remember the picture where two people are actually killing the dog on the road, where the dog is still wagging its tail, thinking that these people are friends. He's having no idea that he's getting choked and getting killed. So those videos shook me from within, and I'm like, I have to do something. I just cannot sit at home and keep loving animals sitting at home. I really have to do something. And then I met many activists and many active people in this field, and started to know more and more about laws, how what law says in India, how animals are protected, how animal feeders are protected, how it is our constitutional rights to be compassionate to every living being. If I want to, I can feed, I can take care. And those things I started getting to know after this, seeing this 2007 mass killing. I got involved in many protests, as you see in the picture. This is me with the newborn. My daughter is just newborn, and I had to take her along for the protest because I was not having anybody, any support when she was born. Because I was always independent. I never asked my in-laws or my parents to come and look after my daughter. I looked after my daughter myself all 3 years. After she started walking and all, she became my rescue partner and my feeding partner. So she was always there. So I mean, look at the picture. She was just newborn, and I had to take her for the protest. So I started getting involved in protest and some kind of vaccination drives, sterilization drives, awareness campaigns. All those things I've started doing it officially. And how I became activist, I was just a lover, very um, happy animal lover who is actually very timid and very scared also by people. If somebody comes and says, what are you doing, you're doing something wrong, stop it, and I'm like, oh my god, then I would go silently and do the thing, because I cannot stop myself by not feeding them, by not attending to them. But I had no guts to just say, go and say, why not, I'm doing the right thing and I'm spending my own money, who are you to tell me to stop? So all those things, I was very scared earlier. But the negativity and the hatred and the misery actually converted me slowly from animal lover to animal activist. If I wouldn't see so much of hatred and negativity around me, I wouldn't be an activist. I would always be a happy animal lover. But people coming and fighting with me, and I got to know some poisoning case, I get to know a lot of cruelty cases, abuse cases, and that made me feel that am I the only one alone? And that's what I felt all my life, that I'm the only one, nobody else is there. So that made that feeling of being the only savior for them actually started making me an activist. Yeah. And the increased visibility after I would say 5 years in Koramangala, I was not too much involved in feeding in mass scale, but I would do some rescues here and there, and I would keep looking around. Whenever I'm out, I would keep looking for any animal in distress. But I would not know what to do after that. I would only know to call some NGO and somehow get the animal transported from there, or just take it to hospital, or leave it in some shelter to recover. More than that, I was not aware what else I can do. But after shifting to Bellandur, uh, something happened. I rescued few puppies who were thrown out of my apartment, and they were very tiny, and the mothers were very friendly. They were actually crying to all the passerbys to help them, literally crying to every passerby and showing the puppies back. Puppies are thrown here. So I could connect very easily. So I rescued them. I started feeding them. These were 6 puppies. I started feeding them one by one. All started dying due to road accidents. And then I started feeding their moms, and that's how it started. So I just started feeding 10 dogs. Within no time, it became 50 dogs. They didn't become 50. I started going around this area and started finding more and more hungry mouths. And it became 50, then became 100, 200. I never realized. So after doing it continuously for 5 years, after leaving the job in Samriddhi Trust, when I was pregnant, when I was carrying, when I delivered, I had to be at home because my job was very challenging. The doctor told me to take rest, at least 3 months of your pregnancy, and then I could never go back to the job, because I got really, really more involved in what is happening around my area, what is happening in the slums, what is happening in the big villas, how animals are abused even inside the villas, tied up 24/7. I started seeing more and more things. I was working earlier 8 to 9 hours at least, I will be away from all these things. But because of my observation, because of my curiosity, I got even more involved when I took a break from Samriddhi Trust. Then it was like that was a transition from totally to animal welfare. Whole day would go either looking after my daughter or just taking her along with me for feeding, cooking, rescue, hospitals, everything. And that was the time when I was having 4 dogs at home, all rescued, all my pets. And then I had to walk them. I'm like, 4 dogs, how do I walk them along with a tiny toddler? How can I hold two dogs on a leash and then carry my daughter as well? And out of 4, one is paralyzed. So 1 paralyzed dog, 3 normal dog, and 1 baby. So that's how I started getting into training. I trained my own dogs off leash. I'm like, you are walking off leash, just following my command and walking with me. I'm not holding anybody. I would only hold my daughter or wrap her around my body and hold the paralyzed dog, but because I have to lift her. And all the other 3 dogs would just follow me. So those things started happening, more and more observation, how their mind work and how I can train them. Those things started happening. And then I started applying it in with the other dogs which I'm feeding. I was feeding so many dogs, 100, 200. I started training all of them, one command and say, no, you're not chasing anyone, you're not barking, you're not fighting with each other. So I started understanding dog pack behavior, all those stuff. Started counseling people also around me who were scared of dogs. Many people, if I get a chance to talk to them one to one, I could change them within no time. But if I had to talk to a crowd, then it's difficult to make them understand, how animal feels and how can you overcome your fear. But I remember one to one, I have spoken to many people. I really saw them getting very scared, and I just held their hand, took them in between all the dogs, which they thought are not dogs, are some kind of a uh, tiger or lion or something. They were getting scared so much. So I would just take them and stand in between 10 dogs and said, look, nobody's biting you, nobody's doing anything. And then I start my sessions that this is how what happens and all that. If anybody of you are also going through the same phase, you take my number, I can counsel them, I can counsel you. Yeah, so increased visibility, because 5 years down the lane, I'm only doing the same thing over and over again every night. I would select nighttime feeding because of low traffic, low confrontations, and no people around me because everybody just fights, most of the time. So that's why I selected nights, and many people started seeing me doing that. There are some silent uh, appreciators who want to appreciate you, but they are very scared of the society, so they don't want to come further and say, oh, you're doing a good job, continue doing what you're doing. But there are so many people who kept watching me from their balconies and from somewhere. And I started to get connected with police, cops, and traffic police. They started giving me a lot of respect, saying, oh, madam hai jao, no problem, madam. So those things started happening. I started seeing myself as an activist, and also started seeing my strength. This is not always wrong what I do. It can be a strength as well. Next slide, please. And this is the major switch in my life, motherhood. I was already a mother of so many animals, but real motherhood happens when you go through that 9 months pregnancy and deliver your own baby, feed your own baby. It's like you are the only one for them, and nobody can harm your baby, nobody can touch your baby. So that was the major switch in my life. The moment I delivered my own baby, I started feeling like a mother or like a savior for everyone. And that was also uh, another switch happened, that when I was pregnant, I gained a lot of respect from all the villagers nearby. That is a good thing which I felt here. All the locals, villagers, they actually respect you a lot, and protects you a lot when you are pregnant. So because in pregnancy also, I never sat at home. I kept moving around, kept doing my feeding rounds, and kept uh, doing rescues. Even I rescued one baby cobra when I was pregnant. So people saw me doing all that. I kept stopping the water tankers, kept asking them to slow down because the dogs are dying getting crushed under the wheels of water tankers. So all those people who would fight back with me earlier, when they saw me, I'm carrying and I'm having that big paunch and I'm pregnant, they would get down from the tanker and I start saying akka akka, didi. And they would give me that respect that don't worry akka, I will drive slow. So that was the switch, when I started seeing a lot of good vibes around, and everybody is giving me a lot of respect. And maybe because I was pregnant, because maybe some kind of a sympathy on me, I don't know, but something happened during that time. It was 2014. And then a lot of police complaints also happened. People went against me. I also went and stood there like a rock. Okay, I'm not backing out, I'm not stopping what I'm doing, and if I don't do, who else would do? People wanted to throw out dogs from somewhere, relocate them, and I knew it's illegal. So I just stood there, even with the small tiny baby, I would go and sit in the police station without talking anything. I'm like, I'm not backing out. And then those were the time when people started realizing this, we may back out because we have our own life, our children, our family, our job, and our travel, but she's not going to back out, and she's ready to sacrifice everything. That's what I did. I am still in Sun City apartment from last 11 years. It's not a great place to live. I had many opportunities to go out abroad for my higher education. I had opportunity to live in prestige apartment with little better people around who would understand me. But I just sacrificed. I said, no, I'm not going anywhere because I have my dogs around, my cattle's around. I just cannot leave this area. So I decided not to go, and that was the sacrifice I made. And I started seeing the sacrifices started paying back. The respect which I got, it would bring tears in my eyes. When the traffic police see me and does this, namaskara madam, please go. I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to ask you anything, please go. And I'm like, no, no, if I'm not wearing the helmet, please stop me. No madam, you please wear helmet, but I'm not going to stop you. If I stop you and take money, I'll be doing the crime, because those money would eventually go to some good cause. So I'm not doing that. So all those things I started seeing after 5 to 6 years of continue 365-day, 24/7, same thing over and over again, and increasing, never went back, always increased. There were phases where I thought I'm breaking down. I cannot continue it because of money, financials. I'm like, how can I support? I was getting some money from Samriddhi. I was getting little money from my aerobics classes here and there, few classes which I would not be very regular because of my sudden unpredictable life, sudden rescues, sudden problems, sudden fights. So something I was making, and I would spend everything on this. But when it started to increase, when numbers started to increase, it was getting difficult for me. So there were phases where I thought, done, I won't be able to continue anymore. But then somebody from here or there would call me and say, are you Meenu? I'm like, yes. I saw you feeding dogs at night. I said, yeah. So may I know more about you? I'm like, oh my God, I was just thinking tomorrow from where to get the rice. And this person calls me and say, I really want to know more about you and how do you manage your finances, and I would really like to help you. And I was like, thank God. Okay, help me, please. Give me rice, give me other stuff, and this is my expenses. And please come and volunteer. Please come for a rounds. And yeah, so that was the switch when I started seeing my strength. The major switch was 2014 when I was pregnant, and after that when I delivered the baby. And one major switch was there when I had to go to a very bad phase of police complaints and all, and some 1,000 people standing against me and saying you are wrong and you should leave this place and you should go away from here. Whatever you do is wrong and you are a nuisance actually. But I stood strong and police supported me, and I came out of it nicely. And actually, they were the ones who were considered criminals, for harassing me or for giving me such a mental tension. Yeah, my daughter. So yeah, that was the switch when after going through the same torture over and over again, finally there was some hopes, and finally from within I started feeling very, very strong, that I'm very strong and I can do it on my own, and I don't need anybody. It was, and then I started attending calls. People started calling me, started saying, madam here, madam there, please come there. There are so many dogs getting starved and please feed them. I'm like, okay. I would not think from where the money will come. I'm like, okay, I'm coming. Let me start. And yeah, my first donor, the moment I finished my master's and finished my research assistance thesis with Dr. Barucha, I met, give me 1 minute. Sorry. Yeah. I met an architect, a hospital architect, Mr. Sashidhar Cherukuri. He was very good friend of Dr. Barucha, and Dr. Barucha introduced me to him and said, she's my favorite student and she's an animal lover, turning into animal activist. And he immediately hired me as an environmental consultant for his company. He is a hospital architect. And he said, okay, after you finish here, you are joining me. And he was the one who actually came to meet me one day while I was in my feeding rounds. And he said, where are you? And I'm here already. I said, give me half an hour more. I'm finishing my feeding rounds. And he asked me, what is this feeding rounds? I said, if you want, you can come along with me. And he came along with me in his luxury car, and with my dirty 2 buckets of food. He came along with me and fed all the dogs. And he was very impressed because at the same time I was working with underprivileged kids also. So I asked him to donate for the kids. And he said, why only for the kids? I would like to donate for the dogs as well, for the animals as well. And he was my first donor. So that was when I realized, oh, people also come forward to donate. It's not always you have to bear all the cost. And that was the first donation I got, and he said, I would love to continue donating it to you. You let me know what is your expenses. But it didn't happen. He continued for 6 months. That is for something else. He got into some trouble and some financial problem. It didn't happen. But that one donation made me start feeling very positive about it. There are people who would like to donate also. I need not worry so much about the finances. I can just increase. And some magical power, whenever I thought I am down, I'm going down, I cannot continue it anymore without money, without donors, without help, without friends, something happened. Something magical would happen, and the next day itself I would get a call from someone, or someone will just meet me on the road and say, I would like to volunteer with you, I would really like to help you. So this is how I continued till today. 12 years in this mass scale feeding, and a lot of things happened during all these years. uh, yeah, and then snakes, yeah. I could change minds of people from that school, Samriddhi Trust, 500 people, 500 families I could change. I could even change people hurting animals like squirrels. They would go on the trees, unnecessarily take the squirrel baby, keep them in the cage, and sometimes they would go on the trees and take the baby parrot, and keep them in the cages and all. So those things I could stop. I could start talking to people, tell them this is wrong. They are meant to fly, and they're meant to be there with their mother. It's very wrong. Even a small baby, my own daughter can say, if she sees a frog, she would ask me, where is the mama? Where is the frog's mother? And if she sees a lizard, she would say, where is the lizard's mother? There are so many videos, very low resolution, bad quality videos, but there are n number of such videos where she's asking me, where is the lizard mama and where is the frog mama? So even the small baby can understand the baby is meant to be with the mother. So why you guys are doing this? Sometimes I had to call the cops. Sometimes I had to also call the forest department. But those things paid off. I have a video where the villagers, without me, caught a cobra. Without killing the cobra, they released it in my cooking area. My cooking area is like in the middle of nowhere. You will see the videos of the roads which takes me to my cooking area is really, really adventurous road. Okay, the fifth slide, please. The back one, I didn't read it. Switch, yeah, I told you. I mean, after the motherhood, that was the major switch. And after I knew that the law is on my side, that was the switch where, people gave up on me, saying that she's not going to change, and we have to change. So that made me do more and more rescues. And as I said, Dr. Ansar Kamran, he always gives me discount. Whenever I pick up a dog from the street and go to him directly, he would not ask me to pay then and there. So that gave me little relief on my pocket that, okay, I can do rescues. I need not think about the funds that time. He will not ask me. He'll say later, first you finish your rescue. So those things. More ABC camps. I started going to villages nearby slums, started talking to them in Kannada and Telugu, started explaining them why rabies vaccination is important, why sterilization is important, why we have to control the population of animals who are not needed, who are unwanted in urban setup. And legal consultations. Yeah, many feeders, when many ladies contacted me after my case, which went viral, they started contacting me asking, how do we overcome this? How do we settle this problem where I'm attacked, I'm abused whenever I go for feeding? People come and attack me, abuse me, threaten me. How do I go about it? So because I had gone through all those phases, I started giving that free consultations, that these are the steps you should involve BBMP, you should involve police, you should counsel them, you should show them Animal Welfare Board of India documents, you should tell them why these animals are around us and why we cannot kill, we cannot relocate, we cannot hurt them. So all those things, I started giving a lot of consultations. I started getting involved in a lot of cruelty cases, abuse cases. And yeah, the journey went on. Next slide, please. Yeah, so during lockdown 2020, it was like opening up new horizon for me, because the world came to standstill, and nobody is running to the office, uh, behind the money, behind securing the future, behind buying more lands, more IT parks, more encroachment, more developments, more fights, more stress, more traffic, more noise. Nothing. I mean, lockdown was like, oh my God, I only see nature at their best, because I was allowed. Everybody, my husband and my daughter was locked up inside the house for 6 solid months. They just didn't go out anywhere. And I am the one who started going even more out during lockdown, because now I see more and more restaurants are shut, roadside eateries are shut. All the dogs or whatever cats, whoever was dependent on these small hotels, they are starving. There is no water, there is no people, nobody is around. So I started increasing my area. I started going more and more area, and I started seeing more hungry mouths. And then CUPA contacted me. CUPA is an animal welfare organization. They said, we really want to support feeders, whoever are already feeding. If you can increase the area and increase the number of dogs, let us know. We will support you for that. So I immediately increased 200 more dogs. Till 2019, before the lockdown, I was feeding 500 dogs. After the lockdown, when I went around this area, I counted 200 more dogs who really need food, and they are really starving. So I told them 200 more, and the food started coming. And the CUPA van will come and give me 10 buckets of food. 10 buckets already I was cooking in this big vessel, which you see in the picture. And then CUPA started giving me 10 more buckets, and it was lovely. I just have to go and feed. And the feeding rounds was so adventurous those days. I mean, I would see mongoose, I would see a lot of wild animals in these bushes and lake fringes of Bellandur. I would see a lot of exotic birds, which I never saw in this area. It was very nice. I mean, I could see plants growing back. I could see fruits, on the plants, because we would not let the fruits be there. The small kids going to school, they would destroy everything, and nobody will leave it, because everybody is sitting at home. I could see so many things, flowers and fruits, and a lot of more insects and reptiles and rodents and birds and whatnot. And because there is no traffic, there is no accident. So that was very nice. No rescues, no accident, no animal abuse, no cruelty. Everything was like a magic for me. So that's when I got little more peaceful mind to think what next I can do. And that's when I started cooking more food, because I was getting help. CUPA stopped after 2 months. CUPA stopped when the lockdown was slightly lifted. But after that, I couldn't stop going and meeting those dogs who were very, very hungry. So CUPA stopped giving me food, but I continued feeding them. So I became now 700 dogs after 2020. And now today it's 900. So 700 dogs, and I increased one vessel of food. We started cooking it. That was good. And more cruelty cases, yeah. During the lockdown, there were different types of cruelty cases where people have locked up their animals and gone away to their hometown or wherever, just left the animals to die. So those kind of a cruelty cases I came across, and I released them. I got them released. And lot of police support. It is only me and animals and cops working as a team together, and all the COVID warriors, the hospital staffs and essential services. And ours was also considered one of the essential services. That gave me even more encouragement and even more. And Narendra Modi talking on the camera and saying, take care of animals around you and feed them. That was a very good message. And that's when me, or maybe many other people like me, started realizing it's all good. It's all happening for the good, and we are not bad people. Whatever we are doing is good for the society, good for people around, good for animals. And it's a peaceful coexistence. It's nothing nuisance or something. It's something which is really right, which people started to recognize. And during the lockdown period, it was amazing. I started getting calls from every corner of the Bangalore saying, I heard about you and I want to support you and I really appreciate what you do. And I'm like, wow. So yeah, 2020 lockdown was a switch, a major switch. And hassle-free rescues, yeah, even if there is a rescue, there is no traffic, so we could just reach there in time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and sorted. Doctors are free most of the time. It's not a long queue. It is not half a day or rescue where you come back with migraine and headache and pollution and traffic noise. So it was all happy, everything was very happy. And on spot treatment workshops. So during all these years, whatever I have learned from different veterinary doctors. I have learned how to give injections to animals. I have learned how to manage trauma cases on spot, right there on the road. I have learned how to give drips because every time the rescue team never comes on time and there are no NGO ambulance available. So you have to be your own, savior. So all those things which I have learned during all these years, I thought of sharing it with people. So I started giving weekly on spot workshops, classes, and it was good. People started coming and learning. Still, I have a WhatsApp group with 150 people where people don't physically come. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but they are in touch with me. Even now, when I'm presenting it, my phone is continuously vibrating. These are all consultation calls and WhatsApp messages where people show me video and photos of the animal and say that, how do I treat it? Please tell me, give me advice. And then I tell them what to do and how you can treat and how you have the healing power in you and you can actually do a lot of things. So all those realizations happened only when the world was in standstill and everybody halted. Everybody realized what is right and what is wrong. Everybody realized that money is not everything, job is not everything, your own happiness, passion is what will go with you. COVID taught us everything. And I also learned a lot of things, and I started becoming very productive during lockdown. I never thought I could give classes. I never thought people would come and see me as a role model and start learning from me. And many women, there are blogs in my web page where you can see all the girls, especially girls and women, got very actively involved in rescues. Earlier I would only hear male rescuer because girls are not very physically fit to handle cases where you have to lift the animal and take it. And but during lockdown they saw my videos and they are like, I want to be you. And there are examples. I can tell 5 women's name who actually became very active rescuers and they have continued. um, that's a change I could start bringing to society and I was very happy about it. It was only me alone doing something in my own corner of my world and nothing much. But after the lockdown it was volunteers coming in trying to learn from me and trying to get therapy for themselves. People who are literally depressed in their life, they come and find out that they have a healing power and they can actually heal a dying animal. So they come out of depression. They really want to come more and more to my shed. One more development happened during lockdown was hiring a new shed. I have hired a new shed which is an open shelter. It is not a shelter which is confined and which is having a cages, which is where you just go and keep the dog tied up inside the cage or something. It is an open shed, open area. I may have some videos which I can share with you where the dogs are brought after accident or some kind of a major ailment, and then they are kept inside the shed. They are given a lot of love and care, and they are free to roam around. If they want to go out of the room, they go out of the room. They meet other dogs. They get into the normal regular life, normal, regular pack behavior, instinct. And I have taken very, very difficult cases in my shed. Most of the cases are considered PTS, put down, because they are just taking long time to recover. So those cases are there in my shed, and I have taken the challenge to make them back on the feet. Next slide, please. I already told about this. I have given the target to myself to reach out to 1,000 dogs in and around this area and do their sterilization and vaccination. And yeah, people started looking up to me as a role model, and many people called me, and they have learned a lot of things from me. So it's not only me here in my area, it's multiple Minu in multiple different areas and helping out to multiple animals, and that's the best thing which I could achieve, you know. Next please. This is on-spot treatment happening on the roadside. I'm giving drips to a dog, and this is a kite, a rescued kite, who stayed with me for 1 month and flew away and still comes back for his food. He flies towards my balcony, catch the food, and fly away. He recognizes my voice. This is a baby squirrel who stayed with us for a few days. My daughter used to feed it, and then I given it away to wildlife rehabilitation center. Next, please. This is my rescue shed, and this is one dog which I picked it up from the outer ring road, paralyzed dog, and somebody donated me this wheel cart, and this guy is happily walking in this wheel cart. This is a very long process to rehabilitate a spinal injury. This dog is having a spinal fracture, and it's going to take a long. I go there every day. Volunteers come and we do the dressing every day. We give them physiotherapy, walk them. So many things are happening. A lot of things are happening. And what is happening next? I am applying for a honorary animal welfare officer card, so that I can attend to more and more cruelty cases. I should not get into fights with them, but go and counsel them, showing my ID card where I can save more and more animals around. I am looking for one army. It's no more one person's job. I'm really looking for active volunteers, my army, who will take care of all these things, who will learn a lot of things from me. I'm looking to talk more and more to people and spread my message even more. This is one of the talk video where I have spoken to small kids who came to me and shared their problems, how they're scared and what they want to do and how they want to learn things. And more of physiotherapy sessions for bad cases, spinal injury, pelvis injury, which are considered really bad, and no doctor actually give time for such cases. So I have taken those challenges that I am going to get them back to life. More structured operations, because I was always alone. I don't have a structured organization or something. It's just that I never got time to do all those things. So looking forward to do something like that. And yeah, I told you I don't even have a proper video to show all of you. It's all my mobile videos because I don't have anybody, and I'm very bad at social media and laptops and computers. I'm a field person, always in garbage and mud and with the dogs and animals. Yeah, next slide please. Next. This is my home page. There are loads of photos and videos which you guys can go through. I couldn't compile a proper documentary movie to show all of you, but I do have few of them. We'll play it now. Yeah, so this is my homepage, and someone tries to help me to compile these things together because I couldn't do it in all these 12 years. I just don't get it. Yeah, next please.
We have a question for you, Minu. Thank you so much for.
Thank you. Sorry for taking it so long. Thank you.
From Amita, who's also, our colleague, and she's also helped with Kenny. We gave you an introduction to Kenny as we talked.
Yeah.
The thing basically she talks about is just a curiosity question. How much money is required to feed 900 dogs is what she asks.
Okay. So my total expense today is 2.5 lakhs monthly. And it is not only for feeding. It is for feeding, paying the staff salary. I need 3 staffs because it's a major mass scale grand thing happening over here. We will play some of the videos. You can watch yourself. And then I have rescue shed. I have to pay the rent of those shed. And there is a fuel. There is a vehicle. We take 6 to 7 hours to finish feeding in 10 kilometers area. 10 kilometers radius. And then there are accident cases, and then there are veterinary big heavy bills. When you actually take a dog or animal to the veterinary clinics, you know how much they cost, but sometimes major surgeries. So this is the approximate cost, 2.5 lakhs, including everything. I really don't know how much it's for the feeding and how much is for rescue and how much is for other stuff. Yeah.
Thank you so much. There's a follow-on question which many of us have, and I think it's been asked by two people. Were there any point in time fear in you of being bitten by a dog? There's always people are scared, right?
Yeah.
This is a question a lot of people ask, including me. Right. So what do you like to talk about that?
Okay, you will, I would not give you a boring answer, which you might have heard from everybody, that dogs don't bite for no reason and blah, blah, blah. I'll just tell you something. You see a person looking very dangerous, a human being. What do we consider dangerous? Maybe dark, very fat, or very cruel, or very dangerous looking person. Until and unless you actually know who the person is, you look at it as a dangerous person, right? But if you are open to understand that person, and if you go ahead and talk to that person without showing that person that you are getting scared of that person or you are actually hating that person, sometimes you come to know that, oh my god, it's such a sweetheart, he just looks like that. So the main problem here is because we are not aware of animal behavior and how to approach, and we consider every animal dangerous. I was bitten once when I was very small, like 5 to 6 years old. And what happened was there was a stray dog. I wanted to touch every damn stray dogs or every cat or everything. I just wanted to touch everyone and pet everyone. And the dog was sitting with a bone. I didn't realize it. He was chewing the bone. He growled at me while I approached him. He growled at me. He gave me all the signals to be away. I was very small. I didn't understand. And I just went and touched it. And he just tried to bite me. And he just pulled my frock, and my frock was in 2 pieces. And I was just saved. And that gave me the lesson of my life, that you just cannot go and approach blindly any animal without letting them know that you are not a threat. Animals don't have an agenda like we humans. So they are not sitting there to bite you. They're not sitting there to fight you or scare you. It's just that they do it in a defense.
Perfect answer. I think you said that rightly. I have been bitten by a dog in about 17 places. So I know what he didn't bite me because he had an agenda. He bit me because I was a threat to him. I was just trying to put a leash.
Oh.
Small dog, and he was too powerful, a German Shepherd.
Okay.
He thought, I was trying to harm him.
Yeah.
And 1 year he didn't control himself, so I had stitches in multiple
You
places.
can trick them very easily once you know their mindset, how they think, and what are they, what body language they're considering a threat. You can actually disguise them. You can trick them very easily. That's what I do when I have to deal with stray animals. On spot medication. Sometimes I have to hide the tablet inside the small ball of peda and fool them. They think it's a food, and I just give them tablets and come back.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think your passion really comes through. There's no stopping you in terms of the 900 dogs you've rescued. The faith you've had in yourself is a big inspiration. I don't think there's any shortage of challenges that you face, Minu. But
oh my god, don't ask. It's adventurous nights. It's really adventurous. I mean, if you guys are bored doing whatever you're doing, just come for one night. You will have the real time adventure.
I think some people should take it up. We will put this message across. Thank you so much for coming and inspiring us to tell us there's a little more to life than just an IT 9-to-5 job. You can find your passion. It's never easy. I'd also like to take this opportunity to sort of thank everyone around you, your professor in your master's thesis, people in BBMP who came forward, cops, your family, your daughter. Everybody seems to have nudged you here and there and been of tremendous support. You're lucky because I think you do so much of good work. Luck never happens to everyone. Luck happens to good people. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to what you've said. I'm sure every Sassin has thoroughly enjoyed what you've said.
You would enjoy watching my videos even more. all adventurous videos.
Definitely share that. And on behalf of everybody who's been here, we'll also figure out a way they can get in touch with you if they want to volunteer and at least come and see what you're doing. Because sometimes, as we say, seeing is believing, right? I'm sure the videos will tell them how much you have done, and also the news articles and other things that they've read about you. I'm sure you've changed some of us forever in terms of the way we look at not animal phobia, but animal love. That's the first thing you started about, the philia rather than a phobia. I think you'll make us think more positively. So on behalf of every Sasian, I sincerely thank you so much for coming and inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Meenu, for sharing your remarkable story once again. I'll be just playing the video.
You can play the donate card video.
Yeah.
The small one, quick one. Yeah. They did a good job. Finally, somebody came and covered me and made a video. I had no time.
Yeah, I mean, 900 dogs take care. It's who has time? I'm sure it's like never easy.
Is this the one?
Yes.
Okay.
Volume. Audio.
Yeah, I'm not getting.
It's muted there.
Yeah.
Every day. People throw hot water on dogs just to shoo them away, burning the whole skin. They cannot tolerate barking. They cannot tolerate dogs coming behind them. So they see me with disgust. Why is she doing it? Why she leaves her family behind and even picking up poop from the road and picking up dogs with blood and vomit? Is there any benefit? I have around 25 buckets of food which we feed every day, and I take two buckets and load it in my bike in a two-wheeler. The whole feeding of 800 dogs takes around 6 to 7 hours. There are a lot of cases where people just abandon their own dog, where they are too busy in their own life. They are not able to take care of the dog. A lot of animal cruelty cases where they are hit with the rod or with the stones. We find them in a very pathetic condition where they don't know how to fetch for food. At the end of the day, when you see them healing, when you see their happiness, when you go there with the food, they actually make you feel very special. The dogs are getting one full meal, which I cannot skip. I have to keep going every day until I'm alive. So I'm not going to stop it because these animals are waiting for me. And it is a real challenge for me to arrange 100 kgs of rice every day.
Deepa?
Yes.
Can you show the other 3 videos which I just sent, where you can see the mud?
Yeah.
On WhatsApp. I just sent some videos. Shall I resend it to you?
No. Let's just try. I'm just trying because it's WhatsApp and we have to transfer it and stuff.
Okay.
1 minute.
I think you have to mail it to yourself on.
It's
starting the size, right? Otherwise, it may be difficult to play it from WhatsApp.
I think what we can do is we can take all these links and share it with everyone through the mail.
We can just add those links in our SharePoint and just share the links.
Yeah.
We'll do that because it's huge. The
file is huge.
File is very huge.
Yeah. Sharing it from WhatsApp to this mail would be slightly difficult.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you
your
so much.
thoughts.
Thank you.
so
We have false acids. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Meenu. Thank you, everyone.